Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Originally, our OP's tactic was to be that quiet and good-willing neighbor and hope that they would take example of it. But when that doesn't work, well, you know what to do. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Crazy lady at Chipotle thinks I was stealing food. This happened just yesterday, and while it was a little shocking, it now just makes me laugh. I work for Uber, and you soon learn quickly the best hotspots for driving around to get plenty of Uber Eats deliveries, which I also do. One place is where a Panera, Starbucks, Chipotle, and a few other places that are just a measure above fast food are, and I get a ton of orders from these places. Since Uber Eats, Grubhub, and others have gotten more popular, they have a shelf inside that has those orders, and you can just go in, take the order that's yours, and leave. It really helps to expedite the process of your delivery so you can make more money. Anyway, Chipotle is the most popular, so I stick close to that restaurant, and I've come to know a few of the employees there too, as once every few weeks I'll eat there before going home. This was during my usual route, and I get my third order for Chipotle, so I park. You can go through the drive-thru, but there are usually lines, and it's usually faster to go inside, and this applies to any place really, drive-thru or not. There are a lot of orders on the shelf, so I'm scanning them to find the name and number that matches my order. I come across it as I'm grabbing the bag. A loud voice stopped me momentarily. Entitled lady, EL. What do you think you're doing? I've seen you once already. Are you stealing more food? Me. I looked at her confused. I didn't recognize her, but it's possible she'd seen me in here earlier, and like I said, before you just take your food to go, there's no need to tell anyone or anything. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm not stealing food. I work for Uber Eats, and I'm delivering these food orders, I said, motioning to my shirt. I bought one that says Uber Eats on it to look more professional. EL, you're nothing but a liar and a thief, and I know one when I see one. She was screeching at me and actually blocked my path. Me. Listen, lady, if I was actually stealing food from this place, do you honestly think I'd come back not 10 minutes later to steal more? I'm just doing my job, honest. EL, don't sass me, young lady, and if you got away with it once already, of course you do it again, and it's about time somebody stopped you, she said, putting her hands on her hips, all puffed up, high and mighty. You need to learn your lesson, so I'm calling the cops, she declared, pulling out her phone. Me. I just rolled my eyes at her. I don't have time for this. I have clients waiting for their food, and neither one of us care about Karen encounters. She tried to block me again, but I just bypassed her completely as she wasn't able to cover all the exit doors. This crazy woman actually followed me into the parking lot, screaming how she was going to call Uber and get me fired, and she'd be reporting my license plate to the cops, and I'd be arrested before the day was through. Me. I just smiled at her. F off, lady. Call Uber all you want and call the cops too. But since you have no proof, the cops can't do anything, and you're not my client either, so Uber can't do anything either, and won't. EL. You can't speak to me like that, she yelled. Me. Yes, I can. As far as we're concerned, I'm just another person. I don't work for Chipotle, and I certainly don't work for you, so I can speak to you any damn way I please. That's the beauty of being self-employed, so I'll say it again just for fun. F off. I got into my car and made sure to lock the doors, and this insane woman actually stood behind my car, which prevented me from pulling out. She was on her phone, and I assumed she was calling the cops, so I just blared the horn on my car, which looked like it scared the hell out of her too. She finally moved, and I pulled out and made my delivery just fine. And our second story. I, as a former store manager, deliberately hired a thief as my replacement. I was let go from my job as a store manager. The company I worked for was abusive to both me and my staff. Some examples, there are a lot more, would be the owner/upper management coming to the store and chasing the staff around while snapping their fingers and saying, "You're not working hard enough. Go, go, go." The owners and upper management coming to the store and telling me how fat ex-employee is. The owners/upper management spreading rumors about the staff and I. The owners/upper management screaming at us over the phone loud enough that customers could hear it. A month or so before I was let go, I had to pay a dispute wherein I explained bluntly, but professionally, how they needed to pay me because it's the right thing to do. They had promised me extra pay above my salary for working hours I shouldn't have to do because of something they did, then purposely did not pay me that money. Eventually they paid me, but they really didn't like that. I stood up for myself and thus started their plan to get rid of me. One of them even stopped speaking to me altogether. After this, I was strangely given permission to hire a staff for the store. I needed one, so I happily posted an ad online and started interviewing people. It took a month, but I finally found one I liked and called their references, which came back average but good enough. A sales representative I knew saw the resume on my desk and told me I should call X business, which was not on the resume. I did, and it turned out this person had been fired for theft of money and product in the same industry of which I'm hiring for. I decided not to hire the thief. A few days after deciding against the thief, I was forwarded a resume from the owner that had stopped speaking to me. It was instructing me to interview the thief I decided against. But how did the owner get the thief's resume in their inbox? The ad was mine and forwarded only to my email, and only I had the password to the account. I followed the link back to an ad that I didn't write and posted from a different account. This ad was for a store manager, a poor attempt at being sneaky. I could have quit right then, but I had a better idea. The owners are notoriously spiteful, but I know they're also lazy and don't do their due diligence. They think they're having me hire my own replacement without me knowing. So I hired the thief as my employee, while the owners, having already seen the thief's resume, see him as a good fit for store manager. I vouched for the thief's references, knowing they'd never call them themselves. 3 weeks later, I was let go when I arrived at my store. The owner seemed confused by the big smile on my face when they told me. I was genuinely happy to be finished there. It was the worst employment experience of my life, but it was a job of necessity. I was able to collect unemployment insurance, thankfully. The thief took over managing the store, and thanks to the new store hours, the thief works 5 days a week with no staff, open to close, unsupervised. And our last story. I'll come back, so long as Larry isn't there. To give you some background on my friend Tim, made-up name, he's been programming since he was like 7 years old. Tim said by the time he got to college, he breezed through most of his comp sci classes because a lot of the content they were covering he'd already mastered years prior. Tim's an excellent programmer. Tim's career's been quite successful. He's worked for Google, Facebook, Amazon, and finally a hedge fund. The story starts at the hedge fund. Tim works a lot with AI technology, and at this hedge fund, he was the lead programmer manager who spearheaded an effort to optimize their AI that helped them complete literally millions of trades a day. To say his work had a massive impact was an understatement. All of this is going on with COVID-19 in the background. Due to COVID-19, they went to work from home model, where my friend Tim kept working. During the work from home, Tim was looking around his fancy $4,500 New York City apartment and wished for things like a yard, a heated pool, a nice 3-car garage, and not living in a high-rise. It dawned on Tim that he could leave New York City. Tim moves to Michigan. So Tim moved back to his hometown in Michigan, where he bought himself a really nice home with a heated pool, a 3-car garage, a nice yard, and guess what the yard had in it? A mother-in-law suite, which was essentially a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom second home on the property of his main home, which he turned into his man cave. It's actually pretty sick. Oh yeah, and his mortgage payment was far less than his $4.5K a month rent, like half. Tim spent the rest of his COVID-19 work from home pounding out projects, etc. He never actually informed his employer on an official basis he moved. He just kept working. Then COVID-19 ended. COVID-19 is finally over. Back to the office, or... Tim's boss, Larry, calls him up and goes, "All right, Tim, on Monday we're starting work back at the office." And Tim goes, "Yeah, about that. I moved to Michigan." Larry is shocked and goes, "You didn't even ask if you could do that." And Tim basically said, "I didn't know I needed your permission to move," in a sarcastic as F way. Larry insists that Tim needs to move back to New York City or he won't have a place on the team. Tim says he's been doing the exact same work from home at a high level for the past year. He's willing to travel to New York City for a few meetings a year on his own dime, but he feels his quality of life is so much higher outside of New York City, he has no desire to live in New York City, to which Larry said if Tim doesn't have any desire to live in New York City, then he has no desire to keep Tim employed. Now, dear friends, what do you think a talented senior programmer with over a decade of experience who specializes in AI technology is going to say to a response like that? If you're thinking he quit, you'd be absolutely right. He quit. Maintaining complex code can be hard. Now, anyone that's done any programming knows that sometimes the best person to maintain the code is the person who wrote the code. There's logic, there's thought processes, there's so much that goes into programming that can be so individualistic, it can be hard for someone to take over a code base they didn't write. John, CEO, enters the picture. 6 weeks goes by when John calls Tim. John's the CEO of the hedge fund. John gets Tim to agree to consider coming back, so that's when John suggests they fly Tim to New York City and he sits down with John. Tim, however, flipped the switch and said, "No, how about you fly out to Michigan and we discuss this?" Tim said he said that because he wanted to establish if he was going to come back, it was going to be him working from Michigan, and if he was going to talk his employment, it was going to be done in Michigan. John agreed, and 2 days later flew out to meet with Tim. Tim sits down, and John says they really need him because he provided a lot of value to the organization, and the programming team is struggling. John offers Tim the opportunity to come back with a 20% pay cut, since he won't be living in New York City, and John called that a cost of living adjustment, to which John said, "No, I want a 15% raise above what I was earning." John sits back and responds, "The reason we pay what we pay is because we ask you to live in New York City, and we understand that's an expensive city to live in," to which Tim says, "You pay what you pay, and you pay it because I'm worth it. If I wasn't worth what you pay, you wouldn't be paying me. Now, my first condition is if you want me back, it'll be a 15% raise." John goes, "And second?" "The second condition is I'll come back so long as Larry isn't there." John sighs. "You're asking too much." To which Tim goes, "You don't need to bring me back if you don't want to. I'll be fine elsewhere." John goes, "I'll talk to the partners." Tim says, "My offer's good till Friday." John goes, "What do you mean?" Tim says, "Next Monday is when I'm going to start looking for work. This offer is good until Friday." It was Tuesday. John leaves. That Thursday, the phone rings. It's John. In conclusion, "Tim, we're transferring Larry to a different fund. He won't be working with you anymore, and we're fine with giving you a 15% raise. Can we send you an offer letter for you to sign?" Tim said, "Of course." "And Larry's really gone?" John goes, "Yes. You'll never need to interact with Larry ever again." That was at the start of this year. Tim hasn't been in New York City, hasn't heard from Larry, hasn't seen Larry on any communications, etc. Some people just don't think they need to read into their situations and then shoot themselves in the foot with a gaslighting attempt. Glad it worked out for you. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.